You're listening to theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
Welcome to part 4 of the Cape Wrath Trail, where Lee and I travel on foot from Ullapool to Cape Wrath, the most northwesterly point in Scotland. Join us as we make our way gently along the route suggested in the Cicerone Guide, north to the Cape, over a period of 7 days in early May 2008. Our Cicerone Guide, North to the Cape by Dennis Brooke and Phil Hinchcliffe, describes the arrival at Sandwood Bay as follows. As you trudge across the wet, peaty and featureless moorland on leaving Blairmore, you may wonder why you came so far. Keep going. Your arrival at Sandwood Bay will lift your spirits and brighten your whole outlook. If Sandwood were anywhere else in the British Isles, it would be packed with holidaymakers, ice cream stalls, hot dog stands and associated paraphernalia. As it is, the bay is totally isolated, and long may it be so. Described by some as the most beautiful place in the Western Highlands, its name is a corruption of the Norse sandvatin, sand water. You may be the only occupants on the 1.5 kilometre long beach, paralleled by rolling sand dunes and attendant freshwater loch. Enjoy the solitude. Enjoy the sound of the seabirds. Enjoy the Atlantic combers shattering themselves into mountains of spume against the firm white sand. But beware, for while the Good Beach Guide lists the bay as magnificent, swimming is described as very dangerous due to the unpredictable tide flows and currents. Off a small headland to the south of the bay, there rises an imposing red sandstone stack, the Herdsman. To the north seems only a stone's throw away, and you can now see the lighthouse at Cape Wrath. But don't be deceived, you have some way to go just yet. If you spend the night here, you may be lucky enough to see the mermaid. Sandwood Bay is the alleged site of the last recorded appearance in Great Britain of this delightful phenomenon. Perhaps she is guarding the many wrecks buried meters deep in the dunes. Well, as you may have guessed from the sounds, we finally made it to Sandwood Bay, which has lived up to expectation. It is a magical place, primarily because of its sort of solitude. And I'm paddling in the sea, but Lee, I suddenly realised it's a little bit too cold for him and he's just rushed out when I was asking him a question. Okay, I'll come out to you, you wimp. Those two Scots lasses we were just talking to had just been for a swim.
Well, there you go, the women are the alpha of the species, aren't they? It's freezing.
Okay, it's a bit bracing, admittedly. Admittedly, it's a bit bracing, but it is. It's still a lovely sunny day, which obviously gives you the impression that a good rush into the sea is a good idea. But actually, it is very fresh, and clear blue skies are certainly coming down to the bay. Has been a pleasure. It's a very long walk from the end of the road where the car park area is, that's shown on the map. And I can understand why that puts a lot of people off. But you know, the bay itself is what I suppose best part of a mile long, I guess. And there's us two, and I think I saw one other person. Everybody else seems to have gone. Running into the bay is a freshwater loch, which is surrounded by gently sloping hills, which drop down to a few lovely camping spots. And I think we possibly have found the perfect camping spot, would you believe?
Definitely, that's the perfect pitch, yeah. Flat grass and mountain scenery, a loch, and then just over the dunes, a sea with a lovely beach. And a perfect day, just perfect.
Yeah. I think it's both on the list of both of us that we just analysed what makes a perfect spot, and I think we found it.
I think we have, Bob. Yeah, yeah. Perfect.
So people who like their wild camping and people that like the idea of doing something like the Cape Wrath Trail, you certainly won't be disappointed. There are few and far between certainly getting here, but I think it's one of the most rewarding places to visit in the country to reap the benefits of such a magnificent spot. If you're lucky enough to catch the weather as well. A chap we were just speaking to, whose camp not far from us, said there was a storm the other night, and half a dozen of the people that were here at the time over the bank holiday weekend made a quick retreat. But it's yes, it's going to be a very enjoyable evening, I think. Have a small little fire in the bush, buddy, and enjoy whatever provisions we've got left for our trip.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just to enjoy the evening and relax. And I think it's one of the highlights of my walking career so far.
Yeah,
it must be. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, definitely. Well, fingers crossed for tomorrow to actually get to the Cape. We can see the Cape lighthouse from the actual beach, and it doesn't look more than a couple of hours walk away. So we'll see what we wake up to tomorrow, whether it's missiles and bombs close or far away, and make a decision then. But I have a feeling that the actual area concerned is a bit further away than we initially thought. But certainly anybody thinking of coming this way, you must make sure you check the appropriate website, and also with the harbour masters and so on dotted around the coast. Anyway, I'm going to go and start gathering a little bit more driftwood for tonight's supper, and then perhaps we'll have a further chat a bit later on. I don't know if you can hear that. Can you hear the most beautiful sound of a skylark? I think that's the most beautiful sound in the world. We've got back from the beach now, and we're next to the loch. And Lee is, because the loch is, I suppose, fairly stationary, as it were. We haven't got any flowing streams next to us. Lee's using the Aquagear Survivor bottle, which I brought with me. And at the moment he's filtering and purifying water and putting it into the platypuses for cooking, and also a bit later on. It doesn't take too long. In the meantime, I'm preparing the meal. Now, this has all been a bit of fun. I'm not suggesting everybody should do this, for example, but this is what I've done is I've brought a Bannock Bread mix, which is a recipe courtesy of Andrew and Carrie at Nomad Bushcraft, which I went on a few weeks ago, as many people will know. And Bannock bread is something that is very, very simple to make, very light to carry, and also adds a whole new flavour dimension to your outdoor camping experience. So what I've done, for a bit of fun, I pre-mixed some Bannock bread, which is 3-to-1 of self-raising flour and powdered milk, and some salt in there as well, just a twist or two of salt. So I've got a bag of that. I've also got some garlic, which you just heard me chopping up, some dried tomatoes, dried mushrooms and dried onions, and I've also got some dried chilies as well, just in case I wanted to spice up a particular meal. And all that fits into a small plastic bag. I don't intend to make loads of it, but hopefully should have enough to make about half a dozen or so bread rolls. So I'm going to fire at the bush buddy with the driftwood that we've collected, and I'm going to start making some bread rolls, probably some garlic bread and some tomato and onion bread perhaps, and to see what Lee's reaction to that is before cooking the rest of the meal and enjoying that. But I just thought you, the listener, might be interested in the results, and if it's obviously as pleasurable as I hope it to be, might consider it adding it occasionally to your own cooking experience, wild camping experience. So that seems great. I've also got a pack of dried olives as well, olives that I've dried. So I've got a whole load of bits and bobs. And to wash it all down, we picked up a bottle of wine today, and we've also put that in a platypus as well. So we're in for a pleasant evening's camping, and certainly to think it's the first. I don't know, what date is it today? It's the 5th of May. Blue skies. It's still gloriously warm. I'm sitting here in shorts, and it's very hard to believe it's the time of year it is. But I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to sit back and really enjoy the evening. Anyway, I'll get on with my cooking and come back to you shortly. Now, young man, your first taste of bannock bread.
Well, it looks very nice. That tastes good.
It's alright, isn't it? So it's just a flour mix mixed with
Very tasty.
water and the olives, dried olives, and the
I'm really impressed with that, Bob.
garlic.
And the bush buddy. Gorgeous. These pack and go.
Good though, isn't it? A bit messy, admittedly, to mix it all up in a pan and
I'm
whatever.
surprised now the bush buddy comes, you know, think it's going out and then put food twigs on and it comes back to life.
Just
With
need
vengeance.
a bit more flour in there, and we've got our next batch.
All that pot out of a little bag.
So what's that? Little sandwich bag? What do they call it? Mini freezer bag, and you
Yeah.
get enough for. Well, hopefully we're going to get at least half a dozen, more like 10 or so.
With a mug of wine. It's going down very nice.
Yeah, like to hear. And there we go.
Yeah. Can't be hard slog all the time, can it?
Got to keep that fire going, Nick.
Bread in the... Oh gosh. Give me that.
Well, don't you reckon that bread is like, if you've got a main meal as well, make a few of those first. I'm making a bit of a mess of it now, I must admit, but
It really is good. Honestly, I'm surprised just how tasty it is.
well, it's the smell as well as the taste,
yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
it. And I love toast, bit of toast in the morning. It's
Well, practically mixing garlic and
Yeah.
tomato and whatever else in with it.
yeah, just gives it that taste.
It's just a bit of fun, really. I mean, I've carried it all this way. Least I can do is eat it.
Well, that's right. Nothing worse than carrying food
And
on a
throw it away.
backpacking trip and actually carrying it home as well. You think,
Yeah.
well, that ain't game, is it?
Beautiful, that is. Absolutely beautiful.
Gordon Ramsay, eat your heart.
Absolutely. Okay, here's your plate.
Yeah.
Yep, another.
Oh, very nice. Remarkably fluffy inside, isn't it? And that's bannock bread.
Bannock bread, yeah. Yeah.
Really, nearly as good as what you'd, get from the supermarket and take home. And
Yeah, but I mean, the supermarket's a long way from here,
exactly,
isn't it?
yeah. I dare say Tesco's will be here soon, but a very nice addition anyway. Thank you. Must remember to keep stoking this bush
Yeah,
burger.
there is a job to do.
Yeah, it's not all fun. Well, this is quite a good fun, really. Not much of a chore, that, isn't it?
Any more wine left? Haven't Well, we're well into Tuesday morning now. We had a lovely evening last night. It was very sunny and balmy right through to late. Didn't really get cold at all. Very much like a good summer's day, actually. And we both had a lot to eat following the bread starter, the garlic breads and so on. I think we both went to bed completely stuffed, meaning we had a fairly quiet night. The weather was a slight breeze. The breeze has changed, but we awoke this morning, and I was certainly out at 7 o'clock this morning, watching the sun come up over the hills, looking at the lapping Sandwood Loch, which was still very still like a mill pond, and once again the sun is now high in the sky, on a mainly blue sky. Very, very mild day, and would you believe, for the second time in 2 days, the bottom of the Terra converts are off. It feels like a glorious summer's day. So both Lee and I think we've been very, very lucky. The gods have indeed blessed us. on this trip. We've had a couple of days where it was pretty miserable earlier on, as you know, but certainly yesterday and today have been incredible. In fact, a day or so before then as well, we seem to have caught the weather just right in our location. So we woke this morning to the sound of the distant shores, the sea on the shore there, which is about probably half a mile away. And as I say, the Skylarks singing over the loch. And it's been a very, very slow and very gentle morning where we've sort of generally dried anything that was slightly damp out and sort of had a wash and just meandered around doing nothing, actually, and finding it very, very hard to do nothing, as I'm sure most people will know, because as we were saying, everybody's lives seem to be so busy these days. The art of doing nothing is a quickly disappearing skill. Anyway, I thought it might be a reasonable time to do a bit of a gear check, really, and talk about some of the gear if you're ever considering doing a trip like this. Yesterday, as we made our way to Kinloch Burvey, we met three guys who had just started the Cape Wrath Trail, but from Cape Wrath heading south. And it was quite interesting. It was sort of, we met on the road and we were obviously eyeing each other's sacks and bags up, and they were looking at our Innovate, saying, "Well, you'll never get over the terrain with those," and realising that we were sort of lightweight, as it were, individuals with the smaller packs. And they couldn't believe that we'd actually come the distance we had, carrying all the provisions we needed, carrying the Pinnacle in my case and the Mariposa pack in Lee's. They in turn had, they were well stocked. They had good 65, 75 litre packs, I think they were, if you like, traditional packs, and they were full to the brim. They had sort of traditional leather boots on, and not to any detriment to these guys, but it certainly did bring upon us, made us realise once again that really the pleasure in doing this walk is if you can do it from a lightweight basis. And certainly because you're not really going to any places or through any places where there's much chance to restock. You've got to carry most things you need most of the way. We've called into a few hotels, as you know, and had a beer or two, and occasionally had a meal, but you couldn't rely on doing that every single day unless you changed your route quite dramatically. I think we've only seen two shops since Ullapool, and they were both in Kinloch Burvey, one in Kinloch and one on the way in. And we've seen, obviously, a couple of hotels, but that has been it following the route that we've taken. So just bear that in mind, really, if you're considering doing it. From my point of view, I've brought more than I needed to because I wanted to trial a few things and see how they worked in practicality. So I'll sort of quickly whip through a few things if that's of interest to people, and if it's not, well, skip through this part, but hopefully you might find some thought-provoking ideas in this. First thing, of course, I'll clear my rubbish away. First thing, of course, is the tent. That's been the Shangri-La 3 with the ground sheet, which I've modified as I described earlier, and that has been a great success. If nothing else, it's just given me a huge amount of space. And Lee is forever coming over and saying it's like a TARDIS compared to his Acto, where he can only lie in one particular position and store things in one area. If the ground is not quite to my liking when I'm sleeping, I can actually swivel round and rotate positions in various ways until I get comfortable. So for the amount of weight versus the amount of area covered, then yes, definitely well worth considering. You could do it with a tarp. I think ideally a tarp and a bivvy would be the best way to do this trip personally, but you'd have to choose the time of year with obviously taking the midges into account. So that's been a great success. Sleeping system has been 3/4 length Thermarest, my traditional one that I've used for some time, and the new Go Light Adrenaline 20 sleeping bag with the centre zip. It's the standard bag, which is supposedly up to somebody about 6 foot. I'm just over 6 foot, so I didn't want to take the extra weight of getting the longer bag, and found it to be a very comfortable fit, actually. Without compressing the down, I certainly get into it no problem at all, and once it's zipped up, it's just my nose and mouth that are protruding, as it were, and releasing the moisture. A very, very warm bag, although, to be fair, it has been fairly warm nights, I suppose. In fact, last night I was so hot I was taking off my silk sleeping layer, which is my spare clothes. So yeah, no. If you like a centre zip bag, then one of the Go Light range is definitely worth looking at. I don't think there's any other centre zip down bags on the market at the moment. There are on the synthetic bags, but not down. And certainly the down coverage around the chest area and the foot area, and also the water-resistant material around the foot has been a great idea as well. Obviously protecting your feet from touching the end of the tent or the tarp or whatever. So that's been a good success. Thermalite Thermarest mat, always good. The clothing-wise, as my spare set of clothes, I had silk body long johns and silk body long sleeve top. I had a dry pair of Lightfoot socks. And I had I've got my couple of hats or buff or whatever else, which have always been my dry clothes. And then if I wanted to be smart to go to the bar, as it were, I have got a pair of Montane wind trousers, very much like the wind shirts, which go over my silk base layer. So even if I'm sopping wet with my normal clothes, I can change into something light and flexible, and also it doubles up as being a sleeping layer as well, which gives me an enormous amount of comfort and heat, and they've been great. So certainly my spare clothes have been the silk top and bottoms, a spare pair of briefs, Vaude light slip briefs, a spare pair of socks, and I've also brought a pair of sealskin socks as well, which I've only needed once or twice when my shoes have been really wet and I need to pop out for whatever reason. And save getting my dry socks wet, as it were, my spare dry socks wet. One thing I would suggest as an idea which works for me, and Lee's taken it on board as being quite a good one for him too, is the buff. I sometimes use it as headgear to keep the heating when I'm sleeping, but certainly up in Scotland here, the light is obviously, the days are a lot longer, so it's quite light till late in the evening and light much earlier. I tend to squash the buff down into a bandana and put it over my eyes and ears, so it's actually like a blindfold. And I find that really aids the length of sleep, which is it works for me. Other clothing-wise, my insulation layer is the Live Down smock. Never go anywhere without it. Fantastic piece of kit. And as you know, I sent back the Montane Kinetic smock and the waterproofs, because I've now got the Paramo, of which the Paramo I've not worn for the last 2 or 3 days. It's been that warm. Paramo has proved itself earlier on in the walk to be absolutely brilliant as a waterproof and sort of insulation layer, but it's certainly started to be hot and stuffy when the weather was mild with a cold wind, as it were, as opposed to when it was actually cold. So I'm glad I kept my light speed wind shirt. So I've just been using my base layer, which was a long sleeve Terra T, with the wind shirt when it's warm, and then when it's cold I've been using just taking the wind shirt off and swapping it for the Paramo smock, which has worked very well. So it's obviously slightly heavier than a normal Gore-Tex or Event jacket, but the flexibility of it has been very useful. What else am I wearing? I've got another pair of Vaude briefs on, which would be my day wear, as it were. I tend to try and wash my briefs every night, if I can. Just keeping the clean pair, as it were, for every couple of days to swap round, and then dry them out. And the Actos, not the Acto, the Shangri-La has got a place to hang sort of a line, so they've been drying out very easily overnight without too much of an issue. So I've been having clean briefs each day, which is pleasant, as most guys would know. And then I've got the Terra Cut-Offs or Terra Convert trousers as my only other pair of trousers, and they've been brilliant, and I've just taken the legs off, as I say, for the second time. Headgear wise, a couple of buffs, a Tilly hat and a mountain hat. And I've worn the mountain hat a couple of times when the weather was pretty manky as we were walking, in combination with the Paramo, and that kept the visor, kept the visibility up, and also obviously kept my head warm as well, which was good. So those were sort of vital items which I couldn't really change. All of which went into a Go Light Pinnacle, which is the 65 litre Go Light sack. No comments on that at all, apart from it does the job beautifully, and it's very, very light. What I tend to do is fold the Thermarest into, I think it's sixths, and slide it down the hydration slot down the back. I don't know why they keep putting the hydration slots in. They're absolutely useless in rucksacks these days. But that adds to the structure of the frame of the sack, if you like, and allows me to pack very easily. Cooking gear. As you know, I brought the Bush Buddy and also a Vargo meth stove. Now it's been a good job I brought the meth stove, because as you heard, there's been no place to get gas. I haven't seen gas at all since Ullapool. So had I run out, I'd have been taking gas, then I would have been stuck. The Bush Buddy, or any other similar wood-burning stove, actually is probably a good idea on a trip like this. But you've got to choose your camping spots carefully, and you certainly need to take advantage of when it's not raining. If you have the chance to pick up some dry wood and put it into a bag, as it were, as you go along. I made the mistake a couple of times not doing that, and then it rained solidly for the rest of the day, and by the time I got where I was, I just didn't want to go out in the rain to get more wood. So and normally a handful, a fistful of sticks will be enough to boil water, so it's not a vast amount of wood that you're carrying. Wood isn't heavy, it's more the prickly nature of it, I guess. But to actually use something like a wood-burning stove, the sticks don't need to be any thicker than a pencil, and certainly any longer than 2 or 3 inches. That's all you need. So just breaking them up as you go along and popping them into a bag is a practical idea. But again, a trip like this, pretty well, it could be a good tool. Certainly could be a good tool. But I mean, we went on to the beach last night looking for more wood. It seems to have very little around here, but I guess looking at the sort of little leftover places where people have had campfires and so on, anybody that comes over and stays over here, everybody tends to have a campfire, and hence the reason there's no wood in the area. It's all been collected on a fairly regular basis off the beach. So we found one stick, to give you an idea, which was actually more than enough for what we needed last night, but that was all there was. So the meth stove has been a good thing. I've had a brew or used the meth stove probably once a day for the last 4 or 5 days, and I've got halfway through a standard bottle of meths. So that's been pretty efficient. So I've got plenty of meths left, considering there's only a day or so to go left. A folding plate, the Oricaso folding plate. That's normally my tool of choice in many respects, but in fact I could have done without it. I only really used it last night to put the bread rolls, the doughy bread rolls on before I put them into the pan, because I've actually been eating straight out of the pan like most people these days, so I didn't really need that. Flint and steel, a few sheets or a few pieces of Hamero card, the impregnated card, which helps starts the wood fire when I needed to, which again wasn't that often. J-cloth and green scour are always useful, and the pan that I brought was a litre pan with a frying pan lid, which was a bigger pan than necessary than I'd normally have, but because it had the frying pan lid, because I wanted to do that bread business last night, and that was the reason I brought that pan. But I could have got by with a tea-light mug or a smaller mug. I've got a little pot cosy that I made for the pan and whatever, and in fact the cooker and everything goes inside the cooker, inside the pan, including the washing up stuff, and that goes inside the pot cosy, which keeps the inside of my rucksack clean, because obviously the outside of the pan is sooty from use with the wood stove, which is one of the downsides of a wood stove. Little folding titanium folding spork. I've got a plastic one as well, the Light My Fire version, which is now melted around the edges. Again, I only brought that just to do the bread with. So that is the cooking stuff. Toilet trowel, some hand gel and paper, and a little lighter. That's pretty well standard. I've used the new Innovate grit gaiters, seeing those next to me. They've proved to be as effective as the Raidlight gaiters, but being sort of woven, I noticed that they take longer to dry from when they get wet compared to the Raidlights, where it sort of is a less absorbent material. But they're still have done the job beautifully, and the elastic that holds them onto the bottom of the shoe has lasted, which I thought it would probably break, but that's fine. Right, first toys, luxury items. I did bring a fishing kit. My My fishing kit consisted of 15 metres of 1.5mm Dyneema, a handful of hooks, a few weights, a couple of ledgers, and about 10 metres of nylon line. I sort of did think I might romantically do some fishing. That was a complete waste of time. You're only allowed to do fly fishing, and all the estates we pass through make it very clear you need a licence and all the appropriate permissions. No, you need permission. I don't think there's a fishing licence in Scotland, but you do need permissions, and they do police it fairly well. I also bought some material for catching rabbits and so on. And again, I've only seen a few rabbits, most of which have been around this loch here, actually. So, a complete waste of time, really, bringing that. But it was a bit of fun. It was a romantic idea, had the weather been that way. So that's another ½ kilo saved, I guess. Wash kits, what have I got in here? I like to have a shave as I go along. So I brought the Avid flat folding shaver and the Avid shaving lotion, which I've used several times without water to have a shave. The mirror is the Ultimate Survival Star Flash mirror, so I use that for shaving with and obviously for survival if need be. My luxury item is the roll-on deodorant, if possible. I'll try not to smell. And then in here I've got a small bottle of Mountain Suds, some hand gel, some toothpaste and folding toothbrush. I've also got some lip sil, is that lip sil we call it? Lip sil. And some toenail clippers, which are useful for just maintaining your feet are okay. And talking about feet, I've also got a tube of Gerwol Extra Cream for before the day starts, and Gerwol Refreshing Balm for when it finishes, which have actually benefited the feet. So that's been fine. There's very little in there I'd change apart from, say, the roll-on. In my bag of toys really has been the thing that's actually seems to add a bit of weight up. But that's predominantly because of the gear that I'm carrying. I've got the little Petzl E-Light head torch, which I've used, but actually hardly used. The torch that's been the most useful for the whole trip has been this little £6, what is it called? Rechargeable one. £6 odd, £5 odd. 2 LED torch with a rechargeable cell on it. I just clip that to the back of the rucksack, and I've actually used that for pretty well everything. I clip it inside the tent and let it, because of the height of the tent, the spread of the beam's quite good, so it sort of fills the tent with light, but also you can put it in your teeth between your mouth, in your mouth between your teeth, when you're using it as a sort of a pointing thing to look inside bags and so on. So the E-Light's hardly been used. What else have I got in my spare? I've got my repair kit for the Thermarest, which obviously I use the glue for my shoes. I've got a, one of these pocket lenses, what do they call it? Itoya. Very cheap little lens, which if you need glasses or if you need to see something clearly, like a map or whatever, it's plastic. It's about 1.5 inches by 2 inches, rectangular, and it's very useful for digital cameras and maps if you need to see things clearly and magnify them. So one of those, they're very light. A small roll of gaff tape, and then of course spare camera batteries or spare batteries for my recorder, 4 AA batteries, which is a bit of a weight, and also a little battery for the Canon G9, which I've been carrying, which I'm very impressed with. I bought earlier on in the year. It's lovely camera, great results, lovely big screen on the back. So I'm looking forward to seeing the pictures back from that. Various bits of shock cord and bits of spare Dyneema. My mobile phone, which again is a weight, which I don't use at all, but I just have for comfort purposes, and I also bring it from home. And my wallet, which has, just got moths in it. So that's that bag. The other thing that we brought, and actually has proved to be quite useful, is the Aquagear water filtration bottle. Now this is the 500ml water purification filtration bottle, which I have used instead of the platypuses which I brought. I brought the platypuses as well, but I wanted to see how practical it was to use the bottle as a day-to-day drinking item, and certainly it's been ideal. I've just filled up as I've gone along. Most of the high passes that we've been over, the fast-flowing water, I wouldn't normally have used a filtration bottle, but this is a good example where we are at the moment, Sandwood Bay here. The lock is fairly stationary lock, obviously very little flowing along the surface, and also because it's so warm, there's very few streams within walking distance flowing into it. So actually it's been really good to fill that up and use it as a primary filtration system, purification system, and we've actually filled the platypus bottles last night for cooking from that, and it took about 10 or 15 minutes to fill 4 or 5 litre containers. So it was nice to know that we've definitely got clean drinking water to drink. I've also got my Canon G9, which is not the lightest camera in the world, but certainly fantastic results. I've got a little telescope, which is another toy, a single 10 power telescope, which actually has been interesting and useful for just scanning ahead, and also watching people on the beach or across the other side of the loch and seeing if there was a better camping spot, as it were. Again, not a necessary item, but one I brought anyway. Then I've got my waterproof first aid kit, which is the Care Plus one. I think I've probably only added a few Nurophens and paracetamols to it. Most of the other items that come with the kit has been pretty well standard, and I have used it a couple of times on scraped knuckles and cuts that keep opening annoyingly. And apart from the food, that is pretty well it. Oh, a couple of Lecky carbon poles. I told you about the titanium pegs around the outside of the Shangri-La. The food front, everything has been homemade dried food, apart from the occasional packet of rice or chocolate bar, and it's always the chocolate bars and the treats that seem to weigh an awful lot. But 3 or 4 days worth of home dried food is not too much bulk or weight. Once again, as always, ended up overestimating on the food and then throwing a lot of the food away night before last at the hotel, before our last couple of days. And I've now got, for a day or so, I've now got one main meal. What's that? Chicken and mushroom, a packet of savoury rice, a pack of jerky, which I made myself, which will more than 2 or 3 days worth there, a Snicker bar, some dried raspberries, and some dried black currant and apple wrap, which is something to chew on as I go on. When apart from the sort of plastic rolled, not plastic, the Exped waterproof roll top bags, that is pretty well it, apart from this MP3 recorder and a pair of headphones. Oh, I've got also a little MP3 player as well, which has been yeah, I've used it a few times, but again, I could have managed without it. So I reckon if I took the toys out... Oh yeah, what was the other thing? The other thing is I bought my bushcrafty stuff. So I bought a bushcraft, I think it's called a Moira knife. I didn't need that at all. So in many respects, there's just been no opportunity to enhance your eating, live off the land, whatever what you want to call it, really, doing this walk. The terrain and the environment just doesn't suit it. What I did forget to mention is I've got 2 little Raid Light rucksack hip belt pouches, which are clipped onto my hip belt. Which I personally like hip belt pouches. Find them very, very useful, just for little things like bits of food or camera equipment or something. And I've got a little Swiss Army knife as well in one of those, and the rest of it, I think it's just sweets or something in the other one. And that's been my choice. But going back to what I was saying, there's no chance really to live off the land as such. It's definitely need to bring everything with you need, and try and be as lightweight as possible. Thanks for joining us on this part of the trip. Excerpts were read from the Cicerone Guide North to the Cape, which is available from cicerone.co.uk. Join us next time as we move closer to our goal, walking through some of the most spectacular and remote scenery in the UK on the Cape Wrath Trail.
This independent programme is produced and hosted by theoutdoorsStation.co.uk.